Kosmica is also a project of a committee for the cultural and artistic uses of space within the International Astronautical Federation. So yeah, that's what we do. We bring people who are working in space from a cultural and artistic side. And to start with, we have Oscar, who's just there. He's an interactions designer from the Royal College of Arts, and he set up this group and this project called the Urban Stargazing Project, and it touches very often forgotten issue, which is light pollution in cities. So his project is to raise this problem into the artistic domain in order to have some debate. So, well, let's start with Oscar.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. Well, thanks a lot for coming. So, how do you put full screen?
You go to view. Full screen.
Full screen, yeah. So I'm going to talk to you about the Urban Stargazing Project, which is my graduation project from the Royal College of Art. So basically, I'm just going to start with a picture of the sky at night. I took this picture last summer in the French countryside. It was with a pretty good SLR camera, and it was something like 20-second exposure. So obviously you wouldn't see all these things with a naked eye, but it's just amazing what you can get with like the affordable cameras. And normally when you stargaze in nature, you can normally see between 3,000 to 4,000 stars with the naked eye without any spectacles or telescope. Here there are obviously much more. But I'm sure you've all experienced stargazing, and it's just an amazing experience to do, and it just raises so many questions, philosophical, and it shows you how little we are on the planet. But the problem is, especially in cities, is that there is a phenomenon called light pollution. So if you're not aware of it, it's basically all the buildings in the cities and in any urban areas. The buildings and the street lights are lighted at night, and the design is really bad into it because the light is going on the ground and it's bouncing back into the sky, and it creates the light pollution, and the scientists call it the sky glow. So the sky glow is like the huge diameter around the perimeter around each city that doesn't let you see any stars anymore. So here is the map of Europe with all the high peaks of light pollution. Obviously the red is the high one, so if you look at London, it's quite impressive. For example, the red, that's the highest peak, and that means you can see, instead of seeing between 3,000 or 4,000 stars, you can only see 30 or 40 stars with the naked eye. And the sky glow diameter of London is about 100 kilometers. So that's huge. And this is a map of what you would normally see at night, if you would look up here in London or in most of the parts of Europe. So with the major constellations, and it's quite amazing how all the things that people used to know a lot, everyone used to know this by heart because it was an experience that you could have every single night. You would, as soon as the set would set to the west, you would just have this amazing experience of lots of lights, and you could read the Big Dipper, and they would tell you stories about the Greeks. But I really feel that people got completely alienated from it because most of us now live in urban areas and we cannot experience these things anymore. So what I've decided to do is actually to bring back the stars in the London sky. I started with London, but I'm planning to do it in lots of urban areas around the world. So I've said, well, I'm going to try to make my own constellations, if we can't see them anymore. And so I've created 12 new constellations in London. And the old constellations, I don't know if you're aware of it, but they all come from the Greek and the Chinese mythologies, and like Orion, the Big Dipper, the Great Bear, etc. And they each tell like different stories and things. And I've decided to actually make these constellations would tell something about London. Some are just like legends, others are actual real facts that happen in London. And I've made this project really to, my main objective was to actually create this experience of being able to see stars in the London sky, but without telling people that it was fake. Hopefully I was trying to trick people. And it's, this project is made to really like bring debate about this big problem of light pollution, and also to try to bring people more interested into the astronomy. So I'm going to I'm going to show you the picture of the astrophotography that I did for this project, and I'm going to explain you each constellation. First thing, so that was the map I was giving away when the project was in the sky. And each constellation that you can see on the map has the name and it has the coordinates. Because if you're looking, if you want to see the Great Bear, like in the countryside, you would go on the internet and they will tell you the coordinates. You have to look up at 50 degrees north or something. And it tells you where to find it. Here it's exactly the same, but it's using Google Earth. So if you would type in the coordinates of the Crocs, for example, on Google Earth, it will tell you exactly where you could see it. Because they're only at one, each constellation is very site-specific. So the first constellation is the constellation of the horse, here. So that's the drawing of it. It's basically, it's a commemoration of the Royal Cavalry, and because it's such a big symbol in the UK. And also it was the commemoration of the like 6 or 7 horses that died during the IRA bomb attack in the 80s. So this constellation was placed in Hyde Park. All the photography that you're going to see here was shot with a 7D, a Canon 7D, and with 30-second exposure. So it's very, very, very subtle, like I'm not trying to catch the eye or anything. And all these stars are real stars, but it's only the camera catching it, and you wouldn't see them with the naked eye. The second constellation, which is over there, is the Irish Giant and Hunter. So it's a story that happened during the Victorian era in London. The Irish Giant was a guy called O'Brien, and he was very famous because at the time because he was measuring something like 2.5 meters. And he was a huge attraction in circus and fun fairs. And there was a guy, John Hunter, who was an anthropologist, and he was obsessed with his body, and he wanted to get hold of his body for his collection. He wanted to get his skeleton. And Mr. O'Brien, when he passed away, just before he passed away, made sure that no one could get hold of his skeleton. And so he asked some sailors to put him, to bury him in the sea. And well, when he passed away, Mr. Hunter basically just gave a few pounds to the sailor to get the skeleton. And so you can see the Irish Giant skeleton at the Hunterian Museum in Lincoln Inn Fields. The third constellation is the constellation of the guitar, on the left here. It's depicting actually it's the symbol of the pop culture and rock and roll culture of London. And some people might recognize the Fender Stratocaster that Jimi Hendrix used at his last gig in Soho, in London. Then I recreated a real existing constellation, the Big Dipper. This was in reference to Greenwich and the importance of astronomy in London and how it influenced the whole world. So there was a special event for this one because I recreated the Big Dipper, but sometimes if it's a clear night, you can actually see the real Dipper as well. So at certain times of the night, around 11 o'clock or midnight during the months of May, June, July, you could see the two Big Dippers crossing each other. So this one is the real, and that's the fake. Or not. Another constellation is the constellation of the Fox. It's a very small one, next to the Big Dipper. And it's just to represent, because I'm not English, but when I came to England I was really surprised to see more foxes in the street than cats, actually. So it's just a reference to the foxes, the nice foxes in London. The rocket is based in Bethnal Green, and it's actually the V2 rocket. It's representing the rocket that was shot in London during the Blitz by German Nazis, and that's the type of rocket that destroyed most of London. I've made another real constellation. I don't know if you know this one. It's called Crux, and it's only visible in the southern part of the world, so you can't see it here normally. In the whole part of Europe, you can't see this constellation. But it's as famous as the Big Dipper in Europe, because it's basically, this one is pointing south all the time. And so if you look at the way it's positioned, the last star is actually showing the south. So in this place, this one was in Stockington, it was the only place in the northern part of the world where you could see a southern constellation. Then we have the brick, which is my favorite, I think. So just a brick. Of course, talking about the architectural landscape of London, and it's also representing the fact that in 1666 all the houses were made out of wood, and after the Great Fire it was in the law that every new houses or building should be built using bricks. It was safer. That's why we got bricks in London. Then we have a circle, the ring. So it's 8 bright stars that are just making a ring. This one doesn't represent anything, it's just a visual experience. And the mosquito is quite an interesting one, because there is, I think in the 90s or something, some scientists have discovered that there is a new species of mosquito in the London underground, and it's unique to the whole world. It's basically when they first started to build the tube, they made loads of tunnels, and loads of mosquitoes got trapped, and they got trapped for centuries, and they made so many generation after generation that they actually created a new species. And it's been proven it's a new species because they can't mate with any other mosquito species. The triangle is like the ring, it's just nice. It's an equilateral triangle. It's very strange to see that at night in the sky. And the last constellation is the line of 7. So it's 7 stars that are perfectly aligned, and that they stand out in the sky. So you might wonder how I've made this constellation in the sky. So basically, me and my 2 assistants, we've been putting them in like a kind of guerrilla street art style, because we didn't ask permission, but we just did it, and using 3-meter tall, giant telescopic slingshot. And actually, each constellation is a structure, a triangulated structure made out of nylon and fiber optics, and the way they constructed is, you've got, everything is out of nylon, and the mother cell at the bottom is actually a solar panel that is connected to a rechargeable battery and an LED. So during the day, the sun is recharging the battery, and at night there's a sensor that triggers the LED to go on, and the light is shining through the fiber optics that goes all the way through the line and stops at different intersections that makes each intersection is a star. The reason it's triangulated is that after all the experiments I've done, it's just the best way to have a structure very, very completely in tension, and that doesn't move even if it's windy, it's just going to retain the same shape. And each point of the structure is attached to a tree, the top of the trees. So the first thing we do, when we want to put stars in London, what we did, we had, like any kind of street artist, we basically select a spot, And I was selecting like nice tall trees. And with a compass, I was calculating the angle, so I could then have the kind of patchwork of the whole triangle, so that I could then build the new constellation exactly specific to the three trees. And then, when it's shooting time, we basically go really early in the morning, at 4 or 5 in the morning, to avoid people and dogs. And we basically shoot a line over each tree that goes over the tree, and the highest thing we've done, I think, was 30 meters or something. And the line, the ball falls down, so then we can get hold of the ball, and we attach the other end of the line to one of the point of the structure, and the three of us can pull the whole thing together, and the structure rises, and then we just attach it to the tree. So each constellation is completely specific to the site because they're not using the same trees, and so they're all unique. And that's the drawings of each constellation, like the horse, the Irish giant, and so on. And yeah, the whole point was to be very, very subtle, so I'm not trying to catch the eye or anything. So actually there are two constellations here that I've placed. There's one over there, and the other one is to the left. And so it's very subtle because it's fiber optic, so the view angle is very small, so you have to be right under it if you want to see all the stars. And this one is the triangle, and that one is the Big Dipper. Normally it's like 10 times higher than that. That's a picture of the structure during the day, so you hardly don't see it. And it's only at night that you can enjoy the spectacle. And after doing this project, I made a book as a guide to urban stargazing, because you can buy in any library, you can buy some books about like the constellation that you're going to be able to see each year. And this one was about the constellation that you would see this summer. And I was giving away maps so that people could actually stargaze and go on a stargazing walk around London. And if you wanted to actually know where they are, you just enter the coordinates and it tells you exactly which are where in London. And so, yeah, so these are the 12 constellations, but I'm really hoping to do some more in different places and cities, because it's kind of an obsession now. So, thank you very much. Any questions?
Maybe I think it would be a good idea if we like create a complete blackout in the space so people can see the constellations that we have. So we're just going to block that light. And could you explain us a little bit?
So the one next to the exit is a triangle. And it's quite hard to see, but you can see? Okay. And so it's basically, the mother cell is at the back. You see a tiny dot of light. That's where the light is coming from. And it's shining through the fiber optic. But the nice thing about the fiber optic is that it's like a wire. And when you put light through it, the light goes all the way through it until the end. But you don't see the light through the line. So it's actually light is coming through all the structure here. And you can only see the light at the intersections. And the other one on the other side is the Big Dipper. Don't know if, I think it's upside down. I made a mistake. Yeah, it's using the same system. And this one, right now they're not solar powered because otherwise they would be on all the time. And normally they are something like 20 meters high. So the nice thing is that if you're not aware of this project, you might walk past under it, but without even realizing that there's an installation or something. You really have to stop and stare for like a few seconds to see the thing. It's a tiny aluminum part, but it's basically where I can attach the 3 nylon wire, and then I can put the fiber optic in it. So it's just a very small part. I installed them in May, and most of them lasted until July or something, but because we had a really bad weather summer, and most of them got taken down with the wind. It's basically the trees moving and the line broke. But I think I still got one. I think the ring is still there, so you have to see it. I'm not sure.
Where's the ring? Which one? Where's the location of the ring?
It's in Bethnal Green.
You described doing it surreptitiously, putting up the stars and that. Have you ever thought about, say, putting a planning application in just to see, from a kind of artistic point of view, what the bureaucratic process will be in addressing these things?
So, what did you say?
Have you ever thought of putting in, say, a planning application, an official plan, just to see what the bureaucratic response will be to these?
Like to contact like the council or something?
Yeah, as a kind of as an art project. Or
definitely, what I'm doing right now is contacting lots of festivals and events in different cities, because I'd really like to get permission so I could really place them. What I wanted to do at the beginning is to install them between buildings, because that would make more sense, but it was just so dangerous and I didn't want to get in trouble, so I ended up using the trees. But yeah, that would be definitely the best thing to do, and because if I can get the permission, and the whole thing is can last like really long. Can be much better.
I have a question. Have you ever been in trouble for putting these things in the trees or in the sky?
Yeah, big trouble. I don't know if I should explain.
Could you tell us? Come on.
Well, basically, I started this project a year and a half ago, and before using this system, I had the stupid idea to use a laser, because I thought, well, you can get green, blue or red laser, and they're super powerful, and it just shows a huge beam of light. And I wanted to see, if you combine the three colors, you get white. And what I wanted to see is that if I just shoot a very powerful laser into the sky, if I would see the whole beam, or if I would just see one dot on the cloud or something. So I bought a laser, a green laser, and the day I received it, by post, the same night I was playing with it outside my window, and well, there's been a helicopter passing by, and I was like, well, maybe I can reach it, I don't know. And in fact I was able to reach it. I just touched it for 10 seconds, and basically 5 minutes later, 3 vans of cops came to my house and arrested me, because the helicopter had to land in emergency, because he couldn't see anything in his screens. And so I had spent the night in prison. They took my DNA, fingerprints, pictures, and I was in court the week after for endangering an aircraft. So it was really bad. That's why I'm not doing buildings and trees.
In the name of art. So how did they find you in 5 minutes?
Well, they've got the technology that they've got basically when you shoot these days, if you want to destroy a helicopter with a rocket, instead of aiming at the helicopter, they use a laser, and the rocket is following the laser. So the helicopters, they've got track that says, as soon as the laser is pointing at you, at the helicopter is saying something is pointing at you and want to destroy you, and it's coming from here. And they have the address, and there is always a team on the ground like following the helicopter. Don't play with laser.
Do you have any projects coming up in another city or in London again?
With this one?
Yeah.
Not yet, but I'm working on it.
I was just interested in your projects before, like, was this a departure, or what were you doing before that led you to this?
Before doing this project?
Yeah.
Well, it's the first time I'm doing a project that is about astronomy, and also that is science-based, kind of. Before I was doing, my work was kind of conceptual and experimental, but not to this scale. And so with this project, I really discovered a new area that I really want to exploit. And I had to talk to some astronomers and some scientists to get help on my things, and it was just amazing. I think the best experience for this project is to collaborate with people who know exactly what they're talking about, and then build these things. So I'm definitely trying to do more projects with science and design.
Anyone else? No? You? No. Okay, well, thank you, Oscar, for coming.